It's true. Happy Monday. Let me just make sure that I have audio and everything, and I do. Heck yeah, nice to see you guys. Let's start seated. Something comfy, something supportive. Ah, and we'll just settle in. Just a breath that offers you fluidity and ease. And that is all we are looking for here. Just a little bit of fluidity, a little bit of ease. In both the physicality, the soft tissue and the scaffolding, and within the breath. And take those inhales and start to draw into the nourishment. So that you really feel that reception of the breath. And after the reception, after the nourishing side, you release and give back. And I always like that constant reminder, right? There's that very cliched yoga thought of in with the good and out with the bad. And I just like to remind you that the output that you are giving back is not bad. It is the very stuff that nurtures the plant life on our planet. So in with the good, out with the good. And we'll give ourselves 30 more seconds here. Maybe one more big full inhale breath where you really feel and receive that nourishment into the sternum. And then an exhale where you completely settle and release, feel that belly empty, and let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. And from tabletop, really strong finger connection. Bring the spine to neutral, send the left foot straight back, push into that left heel, and really try to feel the calf tissue activate. So as you drive back into that toe mound, see if you can feel the high calf really get challenged to hold the strength that you've provided. And then let's come right back to hands and knees tabletop, and we're going to slide back into child's pose. And as you slide back into child's pose, notice how there's asymmetry here just from the calf opening. Just that lower eighth, lower fifth of the posterior chain getting opened up creates a ton of room. And then we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. And we're going to do the same thing to the right side. So right toe mound presses in, right heel pushes back. You're really feeling the strength in the toe mound as you drive the energy into that right leg. And we want the calf tissue to receive and feel challenged, really trying to challenge the openness there. And then we'll come back to hands and knees tabletop, and once again, sink back into child's pose. And feel the calves Feel that space in the bottom of the posterior chain. And see if you can settle into even more hip room just from the calf opening. Maybe even think about how frequently the calf musculature is being utilized throughout the day, each and every step. And then we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Curl the toes underneath you and roll back into down dog. And remember here, maybe even force yourself to bend the knees. Really get back and challenge the calves once again. Think about taking out the tension of the hamstring. So remembering that to get into the calf tissue, we really need to get the weight back. Try to get the weight all the way back to challenge the calves once again. And then let's walk our way to the front of our mat. And inhale into half lift. As you get into this half lift space, take the arms out towards a wilted cactus. So fingertips pointing straight towards the ground, and then push the elbows out towards the edges of your room. And then relax completely into this fold. And as you settle here, remember to bend the hamstrings if they're limiting you, and try to feel the space that you've created in the calf tissue. So that as you're folding, the fold itself is the invitation to feel and experience that room you've created. Then we are going to lift the heels. So in our fold, heels come up, we're back onto the toe mound and into the calf pressure. And we're just going to half lift, getting the torso as parallel with the floor as possible. Then release the heels and then release yourself back into fold. And as you come back into fold, now we have all that calf space and it's getting transferred up to the back. Let the spine elongate. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. So we come up, find our way to mountain pose. Eventually, slowly, we're getting here. No rush to make that happen. Hands coming together at heart center. Close your eyes and feel in to the integration of knee joint to calcaneus bone. So thinking about tibia and fibia, rooting into that calcaneus, and how anchored and grounded you are from that lower body space you've created. Let the eyes softly blink open. We're going to slide the left foot straight back into lunge. And as you land here, don't put all of the space requirement on the front of the hip capsule. Shift your weight back into that heel. And even if that means taking some of the bend out of that front knee, shift your weight back into the left heel and then allow for the space into the front of this shape. Sweep the arms up, fully express your crescent. And then we'll drop the hands to heart center and return to mountain pose at the front of the mat. Really thinking about that anterior posterior neutrality, so we have that good solid engagement here. Right foot slides straight back. Same thing. Really drive the weight back into that heel. Think about challenging that calf space, even if it means you have to compensate by shifting the placement of the front leg. Then we'll refine the length and fully express the shape. And now really feel that depth and then drop the hands and we return. The mountain. Settle into your mountain. Now you have a little anterior hip challenge. We're really building the foundation of our movement expansion from the ground up tonight. So starting in that heel space and that connective tissue there, see if you can feel how connected you are in mountain. And then let's drop our seat back towards chair. And again, Oftentimes we drop back in a chair, the weight of the pressure of the glutes puts all the weight in the heels. Think about being completely anchored through the toe mound here, and then extend your arms straight towards the front of the room. And then we'll just push the hamstrings back, find our way into fold. Let that lower body, yeah, beautiful, Annie. Let that lower body space really work its way up into the low back, maybe even into that thoracic space. Then let's plant our hands and we'll walk our way back into down dog. And coming back into this down dog space, let's take the right foot to the middle of the mat. So right foot is in line with your nose, and then the left heel is going to cross over the right foot. It doesn't matter how far you take it over, but the left foot behind the right over the top and then push back into that left heel. We're just trying to capture a little more of that calf tissue. So really think about the weight going into that left foot as you cross it over. And then let's step our left foot forward into lunge in the same line as the right. So now both our left and right foot are in line with the nose, and we'll sweep ourselves up into this tightrope version of crescent. It's a much more challenging balance shape, but we have more room in the chain. So find the space, float the hands back down to the mat, and then step your left foot back into its normal position, and return your right foot into its normal position. Sway the hips so that you can bring that sacral balance back. And then once you feel balanced across the hip girdle, let's take our left foot in line with the nose, so middle of the mat, and then the right foot's going to cross over. And again, we're just bringing the weight and the responsibility to the right toe mound, pushing into that heel, and really trying to create more sensation, more expansion in the right calf. And then when you feel balanced, we'll slide the right foot forward into lunge, tightrope alignment. So the heels are lined up. We sweep ourselves into crescent. We have a lot more room in the chain just because we've shortened up the width requirement. And now we just need to balance more. Float the hands down on the mat. We'll step the right foot back to its appropriate side. The left foot slides over. Sway your hips. Eventually, we'll shift our weight forward to plank, get that good, strong plank space, and then it slowly, gently, delicately lower ourselves to our belly. Flip the tops of the feet. Keep the hands right where they are. Flex the quads, and let's take a baby cobra, like a traditional baby cobra, something I almost never do, right? Let's take this. So sternum might lift, forehead lifts. We have some pretty good strength across that upper posterior chain, across the thoracic spine. We're trying to keep the cervical spine and the thoracic spine in line with one another. So we're not looking up and away from our mat. We're gazing roughly down towards the floor or mat. And then relax. Slide your hands underneath your forehead for crocodile pose. And settle at the upper and lower end of the posterior chain. So thoracic spine, all that musculature that we worked in Cobra, and then all of the continued work we've done on the calves to start class. So there was a time in this very special forest where this owl had found a hollowed out wooden tree. And she had made her nest there. And she had laid 3 eggs. And 3 little owl chicks were born. And 3 owl chicks is quite a handful, but she had somehow managed to feed and protect all of them. Until one day there was a incredibly rapid forest fire coming towards them. And she asked all three of them to fly. When you're ready, let's slide our hands underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's curl the toes, lift the seat, extend back into down dog, push down into that finger mound space, lift up into the hip space, and then try to transfer your weight and your energy over the hips, like the hips are a speed bump, over the hips and down into the heels. Really bring the energy back into the back of that shape. And then let's walk ourselves forward to fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, nice and slow, unwinding here. We'll eventually make our way up and into mountain. From mountain, we're going to bring our awareness to our right foot and then bring the left foot up onto the tiptoes so that we take the weight out of the left leg. And then if it's within your practice, we can lift that left leg to a half Karate Kid. And we're going to slide the left leg back and into our lunge. Wiggle the left toes back just a little bit extra. Try to get into a little challenge of this anterior left hip. And then let's ground the left heel and we'll open up Warrior Two. As you come to Warrior Two, release the hands behind you and interlace the fingers so that the palms are facing away from you. So we have the backs of the hands pressing up against the lumbar here. The thumbs can be pressed up. They don't need to be. And from this, we are going to draw our hands up as high as we can without bowing forward. So without rounding the shoulder forward. So no cheat in the middle body and no cheat in the upper body. We're just going elbows as high as we can get them, keeping this nice taut neutrality middle of the shape. And then sink into that front leg just a little bit deeper. And then blossom back into a traditional Warrior Two. So now we have some shoulder space that we can transition down into the hips. Think about really finding your way into that depth. This should be a super deep version of Warrior Two. Left heel's going to spin up. We're going to come back into this big, wide version of crescent. And we'll just use the hand drop to step and return to the front of the mat. Settle, balance. Then we're coming up onto the right tiptoes. So taking the weight out of the right foot. Once again, if it's within your practice to take the right foot up into a half Karate Kid, we will. And then we'll slide the right foot back and into lunge. We land and we're going to give ourselves that extra little wiggle. So we're creating extra space. And then ground and roll open into a traditional Warrior Two. And we just settle. Hands come together and interlace, palms away from us, back to the hands towards us. Then we'll slide those hands up as high as we can without cheating the shape. We're just trying to put the shoulders under tension here. And then once you feel like you can no longer create space, extend out, blossom out into a traditional Warrior Two. Sink into that extra space that's now available from the shoulder room. And then take that right heel and we'll elevate it, come back into traditional crescent. This is a super wide version of crescent, just as long as we can be. Hands drop to heart center. We'll return to the front of the mat. Nice work. Now, really think about the fatigue and the challenge you've given to the hips. Anchor back down into the feet, splay the toes out, make sure the arches are active. We're going to sink back into chair. Don't let the knees go forward. Really force the hips back here. Make sure we have that nice vertical tibia fibia. And then rise back up. We'll sweep the arms up and overhead. And we'll exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Settle into that exhale. Think about the head getting as deep into the shape as is possible. Plant your hands. Walk yourself back into down dog. Get all the way back into that down dog depth. And then let's shift our weight forward to plank. And we'll slowly, gently, delicately lower ourselves down to our belly. Coming down to our belly, hands are going to stay right where they are again. Quads are going to flex so the kneecaps lift. Forehead's going to anchor to the mat this time. And we're going to lift the tops of the feet. And then once you lift the tops of the feet, notice how the back musculature is getting bunched up. And use hand pressure to pull your shoulders or your torso towards the top of your mat so that you take all of that bunching of the musculature and you elongate it into as much length as you could possibly create. And we'll relax and we'll slide our hands underneath our forehead. And we'll breathe and we'll rest and we'll ease in our crocodile pose. And so with this forest fire coming towards the nest, the mother owl asks her 3 chicks to fly. And 2 of them almost effortlessly lift their way out of the nest. And they start kind of zipping around. And the third, struggle as she may, just can't get airborne. And the mother comes down and nudges her, and she falls out of the nest. And she falls out of the nest just as the forest fire is reaching the bottom of the tree. And she falls to the forest floor, and her mother swoops down, grabs her, and holding her in her beak, mother holding this young little chick and the 2 other flying chicks behind fly off. And they end up finding another hollowed out tree in this wetlands area, kind of in the middle of a swamp. And she sets a new nest. We're going to give ourselves 30 more seconds here. Good long rest here. Really thinking about letting everything come back and be rejuvenated. You're really breathing in to the shoulder space, the hip space, and the lower leg space that you've created thus far. And when you're ready, let's press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we will curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. Get all the way into that down dog space and really think about the weight into the hips, getting over that speed bump, transitioning down into the heels. Take your weight into your right foot and send your left leg straight back and behind you. So we press into this 3-legged dog and then step our left foot forward into lunge. Wiggle your right foot back for that extra little bit of space. So we get a little bit extra space. Then ground your right hand and take your left hand into this twist. And then bring your left hand back down to the mat and slide back into your left hamstring for pyramid. And as you get back into the left hamstring, drive back into the right heel. So you think about the right heel being the guide of the depth. And we have more room on that right calf space than we likely have in the left hamstring. Really think about that opening up space on the left side. And then bend your left knee once again, plant your right hand once again, and take yourself into that twist once again. And see if you can push that left knee just a little bit further forward and really challenge this glute med wrapping into the hamstring. And then release your left hand. Step your left foot back into down dog. Feel into that asymmetry. Shake or move the hips until you feel balanced. And then shift your weight into your left heel and send your right leg straight back and behind you. And then step your right foot forward into lunge. Wiggle that left foot back into maximum room. Plant your left hand, take your right hand into the twist. Squeeze back through that left heel. Then plant your right hand and slide back into the right hamstring. Once you get the hamstring activated, push back even further into that left heel. So the left heel is creating our space. And then eventually, we'll rebend that right knee, plant the left hand, take the right hand into the twist, and then try to push your right knee further forward without losing the activity on that left side. The left quad staying strong, left heel staying active. Right hand's gonna come down to the mat. Right foot's gonna step back into this big old version of down dog. And eventually we'll walk our way to the front of the mat. Inhale to half lift. Exhale back into fold. And let's sweep ourselves all the way up and overhead. Exhale your hands together at heart center. And make sure you relax the posterior chain enough that you get fully anchored again. So if the glutes are super active and overcompensating for the hamstring fatigue, relax the glutes. And then feel the feet anchor you to the ground and really feel that connection. And then let's sink back into here. Once again, we're looking for that very vertical tibia and fibia. We're creating depth here. We're pushing into the glutes and the hamstrings. And then push back through the hamstrings and take yourself into forward fold. Let your head go here. Feel all the way into that forward fold. And then inhale into half lift. Bring the torso to that parallel with the floor space. Really think about finding parallel with the floor. And then release all the way back into that space. Let the upper back feel into the depth here. Oh, drift your awareness to your sacrum, and let's roll ourselves up. Finding our way back into mountain. Let's take so from mountain, right foot's gonna slide maybe 12 inches back. It's a small step back. And then we're gonna slide our hands to our hips. And all we're looking for here is for the index fingers to kind of find the top of that ilium structure. So just bony structure, index fingers right on that. We're going to use the index fingers and the thumbs wrapping around the back side of the body to tilt the torso forward. And we're trying to keep the legs relatively active here. So we have some good strength. And then use the index fingers to tilt yourself right back up. Broaden out across the collarbones. And we're going to do that one more time. So index fingers are helping us tilt forward. And then helping us tilt right back up. And slide the right foot forward so that it mirrors the left. And left foot's going to do the same thing. Left foot slides back 12 inches F. There's not a big step back. We just want to have a little bit of offset. Fingers on the hips if they've moved. Index fingers help us bring the torso towards parallel. Really thinking about neutral and strong, good leg activation. And then let's tilt ourselves back up. Broaden out across the collarbone. Big, strong upper body. And we tilt ourselves forward. And then eventually we'll come right back up. Slide the left foot forward to meet and mirror the right. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself back into down dog. Get all the way back into that down dog space. Feel the depth you've created here. Really energize that length. Let's shift our weight forward to plank. Now we're going to slowly, gently, delicately lower ourselves down to our belly. Nice work. Let's do Sphinx. I want this to be pretty restorative. So we're going to go a 90-degree bend to the elbows, palms down. And the nice thing about Sphinx is if you're still looking for some anterior space, right, those fingertips pressing into the mat, really going to help that. You could also lower your head down to the point where you're very nearly in crocodile pose, right? So if you feel like you would be better served just being at ease, lower your head down until you feel like you're at ease. If you feel like you want some more space and you have the integrity in the lumbar that you're not feeling compression, and remember, if you are, glute squeeze is a great way to start to help bring integrity there. You can have the head elevated. But I thought just my thought cycle here was potentially just going straight into crocodile. But if you have a little bit of anterior shortness that we want to get out, this is a nice kind of mid ground where we can be relatively restorative and we can still create some space. So wherever your head positioning is, make sure that the breath is nourishing to the center of the sternum. And it is full and unrestricted. That's another piece to really put some focus on. Breath is full and unrestricted. And we'll give ourselves 30 more seconds here in Sphinx. Listening to the lumbar in particular, if you are feeling discomfort in the lumbar, make sure you're lowering your head until that sensation of compression is alleviated. Last 10 seconds here. And let's lower down to crocodile. So hands stacked, forehead rests upon those stacked hands. This will be a shorter version of crocodile than certainly our previous version. But try to let the shoulders recover, really allow the body to be completely at ease here. We'll give ourselves 30 more seconds. When you're ready, we're going to slide our hands underneath the shoulders, press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop, from hands and knees tabletop. Let's curl the toes, lift our seat, find our way back into down dog. And really, once again, create the depth of down dog. Really find that full potential. And then let's take our weight into our right foot, push back into that right heel, send the left leg straight back and behind you. We'll step the left foot forward into lunge. Ground your right hand. Keep your right heel where it is, but press it back. So we're not wiggling, but we're energizing. Left hand's going to come up into the twist. Then we are going to slide back into that left hamstring and find this nice little revolved pyramid. And then we will ground the left hand, rebend the left knee, and let the right hand take you up and into Warrior Two. Big wide version of Warrior Two. Slide back into the left hamstring, and we're headed straight to triangle. And this should be kind of like a cakewalk version of triangle in comparison to what triangle can feel like. And then let's draw ourselves back up into Warrior Two. So front knee bends, right heel spins up into crescent, float the hands down on the mat. Let's step that left foot back into down dog. Find that nice balance. Remember, you can sway the hips here. We want to find something that feels appropriate. Then the weight shifts into the left foot, left heel energizes, right leg extends straight back and behind you. We'll step that right foot forward into lunge. Energize the left heel, feel that strength. Plant the left hand, feel that connection. Right hand comes up into the twist. Then once you feel grounded, we slide back into the right hamstring for a little revolve pyramid. Eventually, that right hand's going to come down. Our right knee is going to bend. Our left hand's going to take us up into Warrior Two. So left heel grounds as we transition up into this top space. Big landing point. We'll slide back into the right hamstring. And we're headed forward into triangle. Thinking about that lateral line space, lateral edge space, stacking those arms. Really finding the depth here. Eventually, our right knee will bend and our left hand will tilt us back up into two. Left heel spins up, crescent. Put the hands down to the mat. Step the right foot back into down dog. Sway the hips to find balance. And then when you feel balanced, let's come down to hands and knees. We'll flip the tops of the feet and we'll settle back into a child's pose. And wow, there is a lot of room in that child's pose. Just settling into this space you've created. Really, really nice work. And so with all the work of building the new nest and carrying the third chick to the new nest in this wetland swamp area, the mother has not had a ton of time for resourcing food. So she heads out and she's gone longer than normal. And the three chicks are left alone in the nest longer than they've been left alone before. And the chick who fell into the fire has this huge burn across her face. And because of that, the other two chicks are not interacting with her. And then they start to get more agitated as their mother has been gone, and they actually end up pushing this third chick out of the nest, and she falls down to the forest floor once again, this time in a swamp. Last 15 seconds here. When you're right, when you're ready, let's pull ourselves forward. 2 hands and knees, tabletop. And then let's sweep our legs out in front of us, and we'll extend the legs out into staff. As you extend those legs, just follow them forward. Into fold. And so this little owl chick lands at a splash in this swamp area. And she gets up and she's looking around. And right next to her, there's this little toy wooden owl mask. Obviously, some human child has left this here. And it has this elastic band. And she picks up the owl mask, she slips it on over her face, and the elastic band fits perfect. This owl mask fits perfect. And it covers up this burn mark. And then right in front of her, there's a frog. And it introduces itself. When you're right, when you're ready, let's walk ourselves up into seat. Ooh. And lower ourselves onto our back for some appreciation of what has been an absolutely massive amount of physical expansion this evening. So just appreciate as you land here what you've created. And so this frog welcomes this owl wearing this mask to the swamp. And the two get talking, and the frog says, I want to introduce you to all of the creatures here. And they follow this little tunnel that is underneath these reeds. And the frog introduces this little owl chick to a snake, to some salamanders and snails, tadpoles, fish. And all of the little swamp creatures end up meeting this owl. And the owl's getting more and more feeling more and more weight from this mask she's wearing. Last 30 seconds here, just really allowing your body to appreciate what you've created. And with your next inhale, let's bend both of our knees. Kneecaps can point towards the ceiling space. And let's start a little dynamic sway. Really feeling into the movement here. Just allowing for the full range of motion and physicality from the knees as you dynamically sway. And then when it feels right, let's let both knees fall over towards the left for a little static hold. And so the weight of this mask is bearing more and more on this little owl chick, but each creature she meets is so pleasant and kind to her while she's wearing this mask that she's terrified to even consider taking it off. Eventually, the sun starts to go down, and the frog takes her back to his little home. It's underneath this bent grass canopy. And the owl is tucking in for the night, and she thinks about taking the mask off and setting it at her bedside. But she decides that it's just not worth the risk. And so over the course of the night, her rest is remarkably uncomfortable. Anytime she moves her head, the mask shifts and distorts her pressure on her face, and it makes her face hot and sweaty. And last 30 seconds here on this first side. And when it feels right for you, as it feels right for you, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Kneecaps can point towards the ceiling space. And then we'll exhale and let the knees fall over to the second side. And we land here and we settle here. Meanwhile, back at the owl nest, the mother owl has been searching all night for her missing chick. Circling around the swamp. And even with her incredible visual capabilities in the dark, she hasn't seen anything. And the mother owl is about to give up for the night or give up for the day and go back to the nest as the sun starts to rise. And this young owl chick and the frog wake up and they step out of the little frog's home, this little grass canopy, to experience some sunshine. And the little owl gets outside and she's just flapping her wings, stretching them out. And as she's flapping and stretching it out, the mother owl sees this and she dives down and she sees her little chick, and this little chick still wearing her mask. Last 40 seconds here on this second side. And so all of the swamp creatures see this owl coming down and they all gather around. And everyone is introduced. The frog and the snake, the snails, salamanders, the fish, and the tadpoles, to this owl and her mother, or now her mother. And when you're right, when you're ready, when it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our knees back to neutral. And as you come back to neutral, ask yourself if there's anything your body might want or need before Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that. And if you're ready to drift your way into stillness, let's do that as well. Just prepping for your version of Shavasana this evening. And we just find ease and stillness here. And after Owl meets all of the creatures of the swamp, she turns to her little daughter and she says, "It's time to go home." And so the little owl starts to flap her wings, but she doesn't leave the ground. Just drifting into your version of stillness. with this little owl chick flapping her wings as hard as she can and not leaving the ground. The mother owl turns to her and says, "Honey, you're going to have to take off the mask." And she freezes and she's petrified because all of her new swamp friends are gathered around. She looks up and her mom's just staring at her and she says, "Without removing the mask, the weight is too much. You'll never be able to soar." And so she slowly takes it off. No one gasps, no one says anything at all. And she starts to flap her wings and she rises up, and all of her swamp friends are cheering her. And her mother takes off and they fly back to the nest. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes, into our wrists and our ankles, our elbows and our knees. Shoulders, hips, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of our body will move, and we'll use that movement to transition from the shapes we are in and return to a seat. Finding a comfortable, spacious seat. Letting your spine get tall, your breath get fluid, your eyes close. And we'll inhale our hands together, heart center. And for the course of the next 7 days, can you ensure that there aren't any masks, public perception weighing you down so that you can soar to the heights you were born to, and see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Love you guys so much. I'll be back next Monday to do this thing. Holy smokes, was this practice a big one. And I'll be back Sunday to recharge. So I hope you have a beautiful week. Love the heck out of you. Hope I see you soon. Mwah. Have a great evening.